No, I don't know him because I need to speak to Cecil.
Well, these are the live pictures that we are currently receiving from Sandton in Johannesburg, and that's the venue of the 25th session of the African Union Summit, which is currently underway there. President Jacob Zuma just about to address that media briefing. We understand issues of NEPAD have been dominating discussions this morning. We see Kenyan President there, Uhuru Kenyatta, being part of that briefing, and seated next to her is the Liberian President as well. We will be taking you live to that press conference as soon as it starts, but these are the live pictures coming through from Sandton in Johannesburg, venue of the 25th session of the African Union Summit.
Excellencies, honorable ministers, distinguished participants, special guests, I'd like to call the session to order, and would now like to invite His Excellency President Jacob Zuma to make his remarks. President Zuma, please.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Madam Chair, honorable members of the APRM, Committee of Focal Points, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor and privilege to welcome you to South Africa at this, the 23rd summit of the Committee of Participating Heads of State and Government of the African Peer Review Mechanism. For a little over a decade, we have witnessed the APRM grown from strength to strength, and today we have 35 countries that have joined the mechanism. This phenomenal growth of the number of countries participating in the APRM is not a coincidence, but is as a result of a conscious decision by African leaders to put the interests of their citizens at the center of government. Indeed, the birth of the APRM and its midwife, the NEPAD program, were as a result of our realization that sustainable development of our continent rests on other pillars of governance, such as stability and credible institutions capable of delivering a better life to all our people. Your Excellencies, we are all aware of the great strides our continent has made in relation to peace, stability, liberalization of political space, prioritization of the welfare of vulnerable groups, protection of the environment, and the provision of basic services to the majority of our citizens since the end of the Cold War. Indeed, Africa entered the 21st century with much more optimism and resolve, and declared that we will no longer let foreigners or distractors shape the destiny of our continent and people. The APRM is a glaring product of such resolve, which we must all be proud of. Some of the achievements we have heard in programs such as NAPAD and in the general socio-economic development agenda in our continent can partly be ascribed to the contribution of good governance. No sustainable socio-economic development is possible without stability. Sound institutions and systems, transparent and accountable governments. This is why the APRM is an important anchor within and with which to achieve Africa's development agenda. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to assure all of you that South Africa remains fully committed to the realization of the African agenda and the continent renaissance. As a country, we remain steadfast in our support for both NAPAD and APRM, as is evident in our continued support to and hosting of these vital developmental pillars of our continent. As you are aware, the African Union Assembly met in Malabo, Equatorial Guinea, in June 2014 and took a decision to integrate the APRM into the structures and processes of the AU. As we continue to implement this decision, I want to assure you that as South Africa, we will continue to play our part in all collective efforts towards the finalization of this process. In order to assist with the finalization of the integration process, we have concluded the host country agreement for the APRM, and we will have it ready for signature in August 2015. When the current extended lease lapses and the outstanding details on the annexures are finalized, we also wish to reiterate our commitment to the establishment, to the stabilization and organizational transformation of the APRM Secretariat, currently being led by the APRM Committee of Focal Points ad hoc group, and we pledge our full support to this process until its conclusion. Your Excellencies, this meeting takes place on the margins of the 25th Ordinary Session of the Assembly of the Union, whose theme declares 2015 the Year of Women Empowerment and Development towards Africa's Agenda 2063. The importance of this theme cannot be overemphasized. Safe to say that we must all pull together in ensuring that we put our most powerful resources and assets, our African women, at the center of all our endeavors, so that we can ensure that Africa's tomorrow will be better than today. We urge the APRM to continue playing its positive role to the realization of Africa's development agenda and pledge our support. In recent times, we have all witnessed painful and shameful images of our African brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, and children dying during unsafe passage across the Mediterranean Sea, trying to reach the shores of Europe in order to find better sanctuary from wars, poverty, abuse, and unemployment, among others. This is an indictment to all of us and calls for us to realize that although we have done so much to improve the living standards of our people, there is a need to double our efforts and ensure that our people are pulled to their motherland and contribute towards its development. Africans have contributed its fair share towards the growth of humanity and remains one of its greatest assets. Africans possess all the attributes, resources, and skills to live better lives than today. We just need to double our efforts and offer the next generations a future they will be proud of. Lastly, in welcoming you to a beautiful sister country, I want to urge all of us to ensure that the APRM mechanism plays its critical role in and remains sustainable and effective and complements all the work of the African Union. However, while you do so at this forum and summit, please do take time to explore your Southern African country. And I assure you, contrary to misplaced beliefs, South Africans' blood remains warmly African, and you will, as before and always, be accorded the best welcome and warmth of our people. With those few words, Madam Chair, Your Excellency, I welcome you, all of our brothers and sisters and friends, and wish you the best in your deliberations in all the sessions. Thank you very much.
I thank you, President Zuma, for your warm welcome and for those very important remarks. Your Excellencies, participating heads of state of the African Peer Review Mechanism, Your Excellency Mr. Jacob Zuma, President of the Republic of South Africa and gracious host of the 25th Summit of the Heads of State of the African Union, Your Excellency or Representative of Excellency Mr. Robert Mugabe, President of the Republic of Zimbabwe and Chairperson of the African Union, Her Excellency Mrs. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, Chair of the African Union Commission or her representative, our strategic partners, the African Development Bank, the United Nations Development Programme, and the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, Madam Chair and members of the panel of eminent persons, the Chair and members of the Committee of Focal Points, the Vice Chairman of the African Peer Review Mechanism, Mr. Interim Chief Executive Officer Dr. Ibrahim Mayaki and staff of the APRM Secretariat and NAPAD Agency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, members of the press. Let me first welcome you to the 23rd meeting of the APRM Forum of Heads of State and ask that you join me in observing a moment of silence in honor of Chief Mrs. Chinyere Asika, the late member of the panel of eminent persons just appointed in January 2015, and Honorable Colin Shabani, the late Minister of Public Service and Administration of South Africa, whose sudden and most untimely passing has robbed us of two of Africa's finest. A moment of silence, please. Thank you. As we continue to cherish their memory and honor their legacy, we want to thank the governments and peoples of Nigeria and South Africa for sharing with us their respective gifts, expertise, and passion for public service. On behalf of this APR Forum, I wish to express our sincere gratitude to His Excellency President Zuma for the superb reception we have all enjoyed since our arrival. Some 13 years ago, our continent's leaders converged upon this same nation to launch the new African Union, building on a pioneering vision of African solidarity championed by the founders of the Organization of African Unity. We are all called upon to carry forward this vision, to build upon the innovative work of our predecessors to achieve their aspirations for Africa's development by fostering democracy and good governance in all sectors of our societies. I'm therefore pleased to highlight the recent orderly democratic political transitions in some of our member states, namely Nigeria, Zambia, Mozambique, Lesotho, Togo, and Sudan. We applaud the new governments that have been inaugurated and welcome the new heads of state and their focal points to the APRM. For those looking forward to elections in the near future, we assure you of the forum's support of your efforts to ensure that your respective elections are free, fair, and peaceful. This solidarity is the purpose of the APRM, which represents our collective promise to make governance practices open, transparent, and participatory, thereby consolidating democratic governance across our continent. As we work to further deepen and consolidate the mechanisms and governance practices in Africa in general, we must take stock of the role and relevance of the APRM as a tool to drive good governance and inclusive growth across our continent. The APRM was envisioned to be the framework that provides empirical evidence and we are living up to our respective commitments as enshrined in National Plan of Actions. This required correlation between practical improvements of the governing situation on the ground and reviews that are undertaken. While the reviews have been generally exhaustive and successful, we cannot continue to conduct reviews for the sake of doing so. The reviews and their outcome must seek to address, through systematic but holistic implementation of national plans of action, the governance challenges faced by respective countries. These review processes, the heart of what the APRM seeks to achieve, must reprioritize and focus more keenly on the effective implementation and domestic monitoring of national plans of action. We have all supported the mechanism to reach this level and must continue to do more to convince other countries to accede with the assurance that the APRM process brings value to their governance dynamics as they move forward. In this direction, we welcome today Benin, Uganda, and Sierra Leone, who will present their progress reports on the implementation of the APRM. Excellencies, we continue to make progress in advancing the overall goal of our mechanism as we remain challenged in a number of areas. We are yet to complete the administrative reforms started since our ascendancy due to unforeseen challenges. We are hopeful that these issues around the administrative reforms of the APRM will be addressed at this forum, as it is crucial to the success of the mechanism. In this regard, there is an imperative for a strong and effective secretariat to be put in place. Moreover, it is our opinion that the secretariat must be strengthened to assist and provide quality advice to member countries in the implementation and monitoring of their national plans of action. Beyond support to the work of the Continental Secretariat, we must also support our domestic programs to engender a sense of participation among the broader civil society and our people. The peer review must be driven locally and anchored at the continental level. We also need to commit national resources to the APRM program. Member states need to ensure that their obligation and dues are fully met. It is my understanding that member countries have outstanding contributions to the mechanism in excess of US $12 million. We simply cannot run this innovative and important mechanism without the required financial support. We will receive today reports of the progress that have been made by the focal points through their respective committees charged with implementing the reforms needed to facilitate the work of the mechanism. Excellency, as we approach the adoption of the post-MGD's 2015 Global Agenda, the Sustainable Development Goals, the APRM has the potential to become an even more important tool for implementation of the SDGs. It can be effectively positioned to ensure that we track performance using our own sets of standards, rules, and applications. I am pleased to have met today with our strategic partners from the African Development Bank, the United Nations Development Programme, and the United Nations Economic for Africa to seek their support for the panel's work. In particular, our focus is on the country review processes in Djibouti, Chad, and Senegal, which they have wholeheartedly agreed to support. The resounding message from them, which I believe is central to the sustainability of our mechanism, is that of country ownership in all aspects of the work of APRM, from our financial sustenance to the implementation of country reviews, to the application of the recommendations emanating from those reviews. APRM will be only as strong and as impactful as we make it. The Forum expresses gratitude to all other actors who have worked in ensuring stability of the APRM and making this meeting possible. We call upon all of them to redouble their effort and support as our mechanism reaches the critical point of integration into the African Union and take on the challenge of monitoring our continental's progress in the new agenda as we prepare to ensure that we meet our goals under AU 2063. Finally, I can report that Liberia's review process has gotten underway. We now have a fully functional National Secretariat, an Executive Director, and I recently appointed our National Governing Council following a multi-stakeholder consultative process led and driven by our civil society and partners. We are now ready, more than ready, to entertain the country mission support. I now hereby declare the forum open and hope for a future, for a fruitful deliberation. I thank you. May I now call upon His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta, Vice Chairman of the African Peer Review Mechanism, to make his remarks. Mr. President.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Your Excellency Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, President of Liberia and Chairperson of the African Peer Review Forum, Your Excellency President Jacob Zuma, President of the Republic of South Africa, representative of Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, As Vice Chair of the APR Forum, let me begin by saying that I'm very pleased to join you all at this important forum of heads of state and government participating in the African peer review mechanism. Allow me to join the chairperson in expressing my own gratitude to our brother President Zuma for the hospitality accorded to all of us since we have arrived in this beautiful nation of South Africa. Let me also take this opportunity to commend you, Madam Chairperson, for your very able stewardship of this forum since your election to this important role. I also recognize the distinguished panel of eminent persons for their continued good work in steering the APRM process in all our countries. Excellencies, the APRM process is a cornerstone in Africa's efforts to realize good governance and social economic development. It is unprecedented in the history of governance in Africa and remains a unique innovation, indeed a first of its kind. We are the only region in the world which has voluntarily agreed to go into an extensive governance assessment of its member states. The mechanism has steadily covered the continent with the voluntary adherence of 35 countries, representing more than 75% of the continent's population. Madam Chairperson, I am particularly honored to make this statement at this forum at a time when Kenya is preparing for the second generation of peer review, which is our testimony of our confidence in and continued engagement with the APRM process. We are indeed at a critical juncture as a continent with regard to the issue of good governance. The success of Africa's development agenda rests on good, effective governance across the continent, and this is an undisputable truth. In the past, the APRM mechanism, described as promoting a culture of national dialogue between citizens and their governments and encouraging peer reviews among leaders, where we assessed our governance deficiencies, identified best practices, and suggested pertinent corrective actions. Country review reports have in the past been used as authoritative reference material and policy statements by academia, businesses, development partners, as well as state actors. So far, however, only 17 countries have been peer-reviewed and are currently implementing the APRM National Plan of Action. Many countries which acceded to the mechanism at the inauguration 12 years ago have not yet launched their self-assessments. Indeed, ladies and gentlemen, it is almost 1 decade since the pioneer countries were peer-reviewed. The second-generation reviews have yet to be conducted, and indeed this is at variance with the APRM-based document that we all voluntarily agreed upon. While acknowledging the significant past impact and clout, we need to do more to restore luster to our mechanism as an innovative, homegrown, and effective tool for transforming governance in our continent. This trend, if we do not rectify and increase and continually strengthen the mechanism will jeopardize the success of our continent's development agenda and the hopes of millions of our people, which are indeed pegged on good governance. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, against this background, and as a matter of urgency, we all bear a moral responsibility to ensure that the APRM process is revitalized to keep its promise of good governance for Africa. Madam Chairperson, in an effort to revitalize the APRM, I wish to propose that the Forum convenes an extraordinary summit together with all our strategic partners to discuss strategies for rejuvenating the mechanism, strengthening the role of the panel of eminent persons in enforcing compliance as earlier contemplated in the mechanism, mobilization of resources for effective APRM delivery, and raising the profile of the APRM as the authoritative governance index for Africa. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the world is watching Africa, and APRM upholds the continent's reputation with its commitment to good governance. It promises to advance the continent's sustainable and transformative development agenda. Therefore, it is the collective responsibility of we as African leaders to continue to improve and add to the credibility of the APRM by improving its effectiveness, scaling up the accession and peer reviews, and monitoring the implementation of national plans of action. Indeed, as I conclude, Madam Chairperson, I reiterate my government's commitment to promote the principles of the African peer review mechanism, and indeed seek your indulgence to convene the extraordinary summit of the APRM to address some of these urgent matters, preferably before the end of this year. Madam Chairperson, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for your kind attention, and I wish you fruitful deliberations. Thank you.
I thank you, President Kenyatta, for your important statement, and call upon the representative of Her Excellency President Zuma, the chairperson of our commission, to read her statement.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Your Excellencies, Heads of States and Government, Your Excellencies, members of the APR panel of eminent persons, the focal points, distinguished personalities, good afternoon. In the name of the Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, I would like to reiterate her strong support to the APR mechanism. As you know, the integration process of the APRM into the African Union is going on as expected on the basis of the decision taken in June in Malabo. Your Excellencies, the African Union Commission believes strongly that governance is a critical element of transformation on the African continent, especially in the context of the Agenda 2063. You may recall, Your Excellencies, during the Jubilee anniversary of our union in 2013, Your Excellencies made a solemn declaration to silence the guns by 2020. We can only do that, Your Excellencies, if we pay attention to the issues of governance and all other issues related to the structural prevention of conflict. These include the protection of human rights and transitional justice, commitment to democracy and transparent, credible elections, paying attention to issues of constitutionalism and rule of law, and also ensuring public sector reform and improving the quality of local governance and decentralization in our states. We cannot also avoid to mention the issue to do with combating corruption, especially with the Thabo Mbeki report that shows the level, the extent to which gangrene is affecting governance on our continent. The African Union Commission also notes with interest the increasing number of member states that continue to voluntarily accede to the APRM. Also, at the Commission, as we commence the state reporting on the African Charter on Democracy, Elections and Governance, the APRM continues to remain one of our key reference mechanisms and tools. This year's theme, Women's Empowerment and Development, was the Agenda 2063, also calls upon us excellencies to continue to ensure the participation of women at all levels, but especially that of decision-making. Your Excellencies, you can continue to count on the Commission to create the necessary synergies in order to make the APRM a success and a pride for the continent. I thank you very much, Excellencies.
I thank, through you, our chairperson, for that important statement. I'd now like to invite the President of Mozambique to make a statement. As we congratulate him on his electoral victory.
Obrigado, Senhora Presidente da Comissão da União Africana, Excelência. Senhora Presidente do Fórum de Chefes de Estado e de Governo dos países participantes no MAP, Excelência. Senhores Chefes de Estado e de Governo dos países participantes, meus pares, Excelências, digníssimos membros do painel de personalidades eminentes, minhas senhoras e meus senhores. É com elevada honra e apreço que, em nome do Governo de Moçambique e em meu nome pessoal, dirijo-me pela primeira vez a esta distinta Assembleia por ocasião da 23ª Cimeira do Mecanismo Africano de Revisão de Pares. Permitam-me saudar e felicitar os vários autores envolvidos no MAP ao longo destes 13 anos de existência do mecanismo, em particular aos meus pares e ao painel de personalidades eminentes do MAP, aos quadros de cada um dos nossos Estados, que asseguram a produção dos relatórios de revisão dos planos nacionais de ação e dos relatórios de progresso, endereço uma saudação particular pela grande qualidade dos instrumentos e elevado sentido de responsabilidade. Caros colegas, concordarão com a minha opinião de que quando há 13 anos foi instituído o Mecanismo Africano de Revisão de Pares, reinava no seio de alguns um certo cepticismo por ser um instrumento novo, arrojado e exigindo muito exercício de crítica e autocrítica no interior dos países e entre os países membros. Estava-se ciente de que a implementação dos princípios deste mecanismo constituía um desafio para cada um dos países envolvidos e para os jovens democracias africanas, no sentido de se enveredar por processos de governação participativos, transparentes e inclusivos, tendo como bitola a boa governação continental. Minhas senhoras e meus senhores, o nosso país, portanto, Moçambique, aderiu ao MARP em 2003, posicionando-se desde então no conjunto dos países pioneiros desta iniciativa ímpar e genuinamente africana de introspeção dos nossos processos de governação. Este mecanismo tem sido uma escola onde os governantes e toda a nação moçambicana se inspiram para, de forma coletiva e com base nas eleições do dia a dia, nas lições do dia a dia e por sua própria iniciativa, renovam, aprimoram e aprofundam os mecanismos de exercício da democracia, da governação transparente e responsável e dos princípios de cidadania ativa e proativa. O diálogo à volta destes elementos tem permitido moldar a ação governativa para que responda à visão, demandas e anseios populares de que o Estado existe unicamente para servir e proteger os cidadãos através da implementação de medidas de ação de políticas abrangentes, equilibradas e justas para a remoção de obstáculos que ainda entravam a ação de desenvolvimento do nosso país. Na verdade, passam 6 anos após a revisão do nosso país na Cimeira de Sirte, Líbia, em 2009. No decurso destes anos, o nosso país conduziu uma reflexão profunda no sentido de introduzir nos processos de governação ações concretas para responder às preocupações das populações expressas no Relatório Nacional de Revisão e, ao mesmo tempo, atender às recomendações dos membros do painel de personalidades eminentes do MAP. Como primeira ação, neste sentido, para além de termos promovido amplas campanhas de divulgação do MEP e do seu plano de ação por todo o país, estabelecemos um secretariado nacional dotado de recursos próprios para apoiar o Fórum Nacional do MAP. Como segunda ação, incorporamos integralmente os objetivos e metas do MAP na nossa agenda de governação e nos planos anuais nacionais e sectoriais, como parte da nossa agenda nacional de desenvolvimento, o que facilita a implementação e a monitoria dos progressos alcançados. Como terceira ação, apresentamos aos nossos pares o nosso primeiro relatório no progresso em janeiro de 2014, na 20ª Cimeira do MARP realizada em Addis Abeba, na Etiópia. Este relatório regozijou-nos na medida em que foi amplamente elogiado pelos pares e pelo painel de personalidades eminentes, pois aponta de forma corajosa não apenas os progressos alcançados pelo país na construção de bases políticas, econômicas, legais e institucionais para a consolidação de paz, da concórdia nacional e do desenvolvimento econômico, mas também os desafios fundamentais que se impõem ao país a curto, médio e longo prazos. Com efeito, Moçambique continua a caminhar firmemente na consolidação da paz e estabilidade política, não obstante existirem desafios que certamente pela via do diálogo o país será capaz de ultrapassar e sair mais fortalecido com esse exercício democrático de tolerância e convivência pacífica na base da pluralidade de ideias e visões. No domínio da governação, a gestão econômica, o país mantém uma taxa anual média de crescimento econômico elevada, em torno dos 7%, o que tem permitido expandir o acesso a serviços sociais básicos, tais como a educação, saúde, água e saneamento e infraestruturas, o que dá indicações claras da sua abrangência e da nossa preocupação como governo de insuflar uma natureza mais inclusiva ao nosso esforço de crescimento e desenvolvimento econômico. Caros colegas, na esteira do nosso cometimento para com as regras estabelecidas no âmbito do MAP, o nosso país vai apresentar em janeiro de 2016, no decurso da 24ª Cimeira, o seu segundo relatório de progresso, que fundamentalmente será uma oportunidade de revisitar os pressupostos e os desenvolvimentos recentes em torno dos desafios amplamente documentados no primeiro relatório de progresso. Após a apresentação deste relatório, o país vai estabelecer as bases para embarcar no segundo ciclo de avaliação, na medida em que estamos cientes que várias transformações de natureza política, econômica e social têm estado a ocorrer no país desde a avaliação realizada em 2009. Mantemos a mesma perspectiva assumida a quando da nossa adesão a este mecanismo em 2003, segundo a qual o Mecanismo Africano de Revisão de Pares apresenta-se como uma plataforma de grande atualidade e pertinência, e por isso reiteramos a nossa disponibilidade em continuar a partilhar com este fórum as boas práticas e desafios em prol de aprimoramento da boa governação e promoção de um desenvolvimento social e econômico sustentável no nosso continente. Distintos chefes de Estado e de Governo, no discurso da minha investidura como Presidente da República de Moçambique, a 15 de janeiro de 2015, disse, e passo a citar: o meu compromisso é servir o povo moçambicano como meu único e exclusivo patrão. Esse posicionamento coloca o povo moçambicano na centralidade do processo de governação e o seu bem-estar é o indicador fundamental que mensura a qualidade das nossas políticas públicas e da nossa governação. Queremos terminar deixando a nossa mensagem de forma clara e simples. Vamos tudo fazer para que Moçambique seja um país que ajude a fortalecer a nossa mãe África como um continente mais democrático, com boa governação, com mais progresso e desenvolvimento humano. 2. Nós queremos participar ativamente no processo de África, reescrever a sua própria narrativa, uma nova história de progresso, estabilidade, justiça social e desenvolvimento pleno dos nossos povos. Temos consciência que o percurso vai ser longo e sinuoso, mas estamos preparados para essa empreitada. Há um termo moçambicano muito usado pelo saudoso presidente Samora Machel, que bem caracteriza o nosso estado de espírito no que concerne a MARP. A luta continua. Muito obrigado pela vossa atenção.
We thank you, the President of Mozambique, for that very informative statement. I'd like to invite the Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Lesotho to make remarks.
Your Excellency, President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, Chairperson of the APRM, Your Excellency, President Jacob Gedlihleki Zuma, President of the Republic of South Africa, and our gracious host, Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, distinguished participants. At the outset, I wish to indicate that it is indeed an honor and privilege for me to participate in this important forum on behalf of the Kingdom of Lesotho, and to express immense gratitude for the opportunity to address today's session. Lesotho and I personally have been closely associated with this African flagship program on governance since its inception. I can say with humility that I was part of the African leadership of the time that committed our beloved continent to the APRM. You will therefore appreciate the sentiments that I have today. To us in Lesotho, the establishment of the African Peer Review Mechanism on the 9th March 2003 was indeed a historic milestone, reflecting the will and resolve of the peoples and leaders of Africa to ensure the prevalence of peace and stability, as well as economic and social transformation in Africa. The initiative was a sign that Africa was tired of being dictated to on good governance, which was also being used as a conditionality for aid. Africa was determined to create a new image for herself as a vibrant continent which is a partner and not an underling of foreign powers from other continents. Today, our common goal of deepening democracy, protecting human rights, upholding the rule of law, and creating in our continent an environment that is conducive to stability and good governance is being realized. By any standards, Africa is no longer an epitome of economic mismanagement and stagnation, political instability, and unconstitutional rule. If there are some remaining symptoms of these weaknesses in a few of our countries, they are more of an exception than the norm. The APRM process has contributed towards changing the image of Africa and ensuring transparency and full participation of the African citizenry in the issues of governance that affect their lives. We note happily that since its inception 12 years ago, the African Peer Review Mechanism has made progress in terms of the number of countries that have acceded to the mechanism, thus rolling out the peer review process to cover a greater part of our continent. 35 countries have since joined the mechanism, and more are expressing their intention to join the party. 17 have successfully completed self-assessment and have been peer-reviewed, while several are embarking on their second review. We are delighted that the membership continues to grow. For those governments that have not yet found their way clear to join, we strongly encourage them to consider their position. Your Excellencies, heads of state and government, distinguished participants, I cannot, however, omit to make a humble observation that even as we applaud the mechanism for the gains that have been made in most of its focal areas, we need to take the necessary steps to re-energize the APRM within its member states. There must be no room for complacency at this stage of our progress. The monitoring of achievements of the APRM in member states and the process of reviewing country reports must be allotted more time. The review process in particular must be subjected to greater predictability, regularity, and more rigorous analysis. Equally, we need to refocus the crucial enabling structures that support the work of the APRM. In this regard, we reiterate the relevance and indeed importance of the decisions that were taken by our summit in Malabo, Equatorial Guinea, which were aimed at revitalizing the structures of the APRM. It is our hope that those decisions will be implemented in the fullness of time. Your Excellencies, we subscribe to the growing consensus that civil society has a crucial role to play in finding solutions that can lead to long-term sustainability of the APRM. The coalition government which I lead has as one of its objectives commitment to place greater focus on consultation and citizen participation. This is indicative of the fact that our government is ready and willing to collaborate with non-state actors in pursuit of its reformist agenda and the broad objectives of the APRM. By inviting the involvement and buy-in of as many stakeholders as possible outside of government, we shall not only rekindle the spirit of the APRM, but will also ensure its sustainability. In conclusion, distinguished heads of state and government, I wish to reiterate Lesotho's unreserved commitment to the lofty ideals and noble tenets of the APRM. The Lesotho government will remain your faithful partner and active participation in the work of the APRM. I and the incoming government of Lesotho are humbled by the challenging responsibilities entrusted to us to ensure that our people achieve their legitimate aspirations for sustainable economic and social development, as well as for the political stability and good governance of the continent as a whole. I have no doubt that we can count on your unwavering support. I thank you for your attention.
We thank you, Prime Minister of Lesotho, for your very thoughtful remarks. I believe there are three on our agenda. Three countries are newly or elected or re-elected presidents who are not here. Or have asked for the opportunity to make remarks. Very well. I would like to first, before we'll come to you to make a remark, Nigeria, but we'll give the floor now to the President of Côte d'Ivoire, and then we come to you to speak. Thank you.
Je vous remercie, Madame la Présidente. Excellence Madame Hélène Johnson Sirleaf, Présidente de la République du Libéria, Présidente du Forum du mécanisme africain d'évaluation par les pairs. Excellence Monsieur Jacob Zuma, Président de la République d'Afrique du Sud. Excellence Messieurs et Mesdames les chefs d'État et de gouvernement, participants au Forum du mécanisme africain d'évaluation par les pairs, Madame la représentante du président, la présidente de la Commission de l'Union africaine, Mesdames et Messieurs les membres du panel des personnalités éminentes du MAEP, Excellence Monsieur Ibrahim Hassan Mayaki, directeur général par intérim du secrétariat continental du MAEP, Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs les ambassadeurs, honorables invités, Mesdames et Messieurs. Je suis particulièrement heureux de prendre part à ce 23e sommet du Forum des chefs d'État et de gouvernement participant au mécanisme africain d'évaluation par les pairs. Je voudrais avant toute chose adresser nos remerciements au président Jacob Zuma et au peuple d'Afrique du Sud pour l'accueil toujours fraternel et chaleureux qui nous est réservé à l'occasion de nos séjours dans ce beau pays. Suite à notre adhésion le 29 janvier 2015 à Addis Abeba au mécanisme africain d'évaluation des pairs, après 10 années de crise en Côte d'Ivoire, et conformément aux recommandations des directives du MAEP, la Côte d'Ivoire a procédé au paiement de sa cotisation annuelle au budget 2015. Je voudrais indiquer que nous avons bien noté l'appel de Madame la Présidente concernant le renforcement du secrétariat et à cet effet, la Côte d'Ivoire envisage de faire une contribution exceptionnelle additionnelle avant la fin de cette année. Madame la Présidente, nous sommes désireux de tenir l'ensemble de nos engagements, les engagements auxquels nous avons souscrit dans le cadre de notre adhésion au MAEP. Je viens d'ailleurs de signer le décret portant création, attribution, organisation et fonctionnement de la Commission nationale du MAEP. Il s'agit là d'une étape importante qui traduit notre volonté d'aller vite dans l'appropriation des pratiques et des instruments de notre mécanisme. Les organes de cette Commission nationale seront mis en place dans les tout prochains jours. Comme vous pouvez le constater, Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, la Côte d'Ivoire avance résolument dans la bonne direction. Et je me réjouis de la désignation du professeur Youssef Kayal par le panel des éminentes personnalités pour conduire le processus d'évaluation de la Côte d'Ivoire. Je puis vous assurer de la pleine et entière coopération de mon gouvernement dans l'accomplissement de la mission donc, de cette délégation dans notre pays. Excellences, Madame la Présidente, Excellentes Mesdames, Messieurs les chefs d'État et de gouvernement, la Côte d'Ivoire croit au système d'évaluation de l'action publique. C'est pourquoi, avant notre adhésion formelle au MAEP, nous avons engagé d'importantes réformes destinées à garantir la stabilité politique et à consolider la paix et la sécurité. Nous avons également pour ambition de stimuler davantage la croissance économique en vue d'améliorer les conditions de vie des populations, promouvoir le développement durable et l'intégration économique, en mettant l'accent tout particulièrement sur la réduction de la pauvreté et donc l'accroissement de l'emploi des jeunes, afin d'éviter que notre jeunesse ne se retrouve dans la mer Méditerranée, dans l'illusion de trouver le bonheur ailleurs. Je voudrais à cet égard dire que depuis 3 ans, la Côte d'Ivoire a engagé des réformes importantes qui permettent aujourd'hui, de 2012 à 2014, de constater un taux de croissance annuel moyen de 9%, un taux d'inflation inférieur à 2%, un taux de déficit budgétaire d'environ 3% et un ratio dette PIB d'environ 45%. C'est dire que nous tenons à respecter de manière rigoureuse les fondamentaux macroéconomiques qui donnent confiance donc aux investisseurs, d'abord ivoiriens et ensuite bien sûr de tous ceux qui veulent venir investir en Côte d'Ivoire. Je voudrais signaler également qu'en matière de bonne gouvernance, nous avons reçu les félicitations de plusieurs structures, dont le Doing Business de la Banque mondiale et d'autres institutions. Notre volonté, c'est de continuer d'accroître la bonne gouvernance dans notre pays et surtout de faire en sorte que la croissance économique puisse profiter aux plus déshérités et fasse en sorte que la Côte d'Ivoire retrouve la place qu'elle avait perdu au sein de notre union. Je voudrais donc, pour conclure, réaffirmer la détermination de la Côte d'Ivoire à poursuivre le perfectionnement de sa gouvernance grâce aux meilleures pratiques partagées par notre mécanisme. Je vous remercie, Madame la Présidente.
Thank President Ouattara for the progress and for his important statement and expression of commitment. I would like to give the opportunity to the representative of President Buhari of Nigeria to make a statement on his behalf.
Your Excellency, Mrs. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, President of the Republic of Liberia and Chairperson of the APRM Forum, Your Excellency, President Uhuru Kenyatta, Vice Chairperson of the APRM Forum, Your Excellency, President Jacob Zuma of the Republic of South Africa, Excellency, brothers, heads of state and government, Your Excellency, Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Chairperson of the APR panel, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I'm reading this statement on behalf of President Muhammadu Buhari, who is already on his way and is scheduled to arrive Joburg anytime from now. The message goes thus. It gives me great pleasure to be here in the midst of this distinguished audience of eminent leaders of our continent on the occasion of the 23rd Summit of the Committee of Heads of State and Government participating in the African Peer Review Mechanism. Excellencies, as I am participating in this forum for the first time, I wish to seize this opportunity on behalf of the people and government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to express my immense appreciation to you all for gracing the joyous and momentous occasion of my recent inauguration as the President of Nigeria. The gesture of solidarity, friendship, and the spirit of African brotherhood is greatly appreciated. I should also like to use this medium to congratulate Her Excellency, Mrs. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, President of the Republic of Liberia, and Chairperson of this forum, for overcoming the dreaded Ebola scourge as certified by the World Health Organization some few months ago. It is indeed a great feat.
Well, that there was the representative of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria addressing the African Peer Review Mechanism Forum currently underway in Centon right here in Johannesburg. And earlier we had addresses from President Jacob Zuma of South Africa, the chairperson of the African Peer Review Mechanism, the Liberian President Ellen Sirleaf Johnson, and also the Vice Chairperson of the APRM, Uhuru Kenyatta, the President of Kenya. We also had statements from the leaders of Mozambique, Lesotho, and Ivory Coast. And you're still watching